I got a new mouse, so we'll see how well this video goes with my mouse. They should rebuild the original London Bridge, the medieval one with all the shops on it. Like, look at this. That is cool, man. Like, that is so cool. It looks like the one there's one like this in Florence, but I don't think it's as long. I think it's probably like half the length. But man, this is cool looking. And the thing is, where this one is actually in a different location than the modern one now. So they could rebuild this without even removing the new one. And you'd have extra space for stores and like a and like more living space for people because London's a very crowded place. So you'd have all this new living space, you'd have a new tourist attraction for people to see. You'd have something to take some of the traffic off of the modern London Bridge. Like, I think it'd be a win-win for everyone. But something that deeply saddens me though is I've never liked how little there is in the way of historical like fabric in London. Like all of the medieval cities gone. It's not like cities, say in Italy, where you've got a good portion of the fabric still there. But in London, it's like all gone, and just you look at this, and it's just so ugly, man. It's such a depressing looking place. Like there's no personality to anything. You've got this like one little historic building here, and then the rest of these are just big blobs and just like you could stay. This is one of those buildings I hate where you could stick it in literally any city and it would just it wouldn't look particularly interesting. And people try to say that, oh, it's, abstract design or whatever, and it just looks like crap. Maybe that's because I'm autistic and I don't get abstract stuff. Maybe that's why. But like most people I talk to look at this and just say that this is all really ugly. This one's not as ugly because I think it's Art Deco, but still it's not particularly interesting. It's a box. This one's a box with different pattern. This is the only interesting building in the picture. Like the only one that I like, and it kind of looks like a big it kind of looks like a giant vibrator, so the like but let's see if I can show you. Why you gotta be like this, Google? You should know what the real man. There's no pictures of the actual real modern London Bridge. They're just showing Tower Bridge, which people still think this is London Bridge. This is not London Bridge. This is Tower Bridge. It's a different it's a different bridge than the London Bridge. So don't mistake it for one. And these two things lift up, and it's a very pretty bridge actually. I love the Tower Bridge. But this is the new London Bridge. Isn't that depressing? Isn't that the most depressing thing you've ever seen? That shouldn't be in the center of such a city with such history, like London has. That's like that's like a cheap highway bridge somewhere in some Midwest United States city. That does not look like, center of London, capital of culture in England. That looks like anywhere USA. It's a very ugly, boring bridge. I don't know why they thought this was a good replacement for the this is the original London Bridge, and at least I think like the buildings on the other side look like weird. But anyway, this is from what I under. This is the original. This is the second London Bridge. The medieval one. The medieval one I showed you, this one, this was built in, oh man, this bridge was a couple hundred years old. It was a very, very old bridge. I want to say, let's see, when was this? 1209, literally built in 1209. But this was the original London Bridge here. And then the one that I showed you a picture of right now is the new one. Like, see, this is the new London Bridge built in the literally says late 19th century, but let's get a year. 1831 to 1967. I'm not sure why they replaced it, to be honest. I feel like they could have shored up underneath of it because they replaced it because it was sinking a little bit each year. But I feel like they could have just fixed it so that it wouldn't sink because this is a much prettier bridge. This is far better looking than the new London Bridge. I wish this was still there. Like, look at this, man. This is a quintessential London scene here. It's absolutely like beautiful. I mean, minus all the pollution, but other than that, it's very beautiful. You've got the classical architecture here. You've got the tall ships. You've got a classical bridge here with its lighting and the horse-drawn wagons. I mean, it's a very beautiful scene. And I don't know why they replaced it with that ugly modern thing, but no joke, and I'm not making this up. When they were gonna replace this bridge because it was sinking, they sold it to a guy in Arizona, and he had the bridge moved to Arizona and rebuilt there. And I am not making it up. That is real. This is it in the new location. So, if you're an American and you want to see a London landmark, you only need to go to Arizona to see it. You don't got to leave the country. Just go to Arizona and you can see this beautiful bridge. And this is a picture of it being rebuilt in Arizona here. Like I said, you cannot make this stuff up. And just look, this is so sad, man. This is just depressing. This is I've given up on life bridge. I mean, I've seen in my state, Delaware, we have the Delaware Memorial Bridge, and I'll show you that real quick. Um, but the Delaware Memorial Bridge is prettier than this. Like, and it's not even that like okay, it's kind of cool looking, but you look at that and compare that to this. Like, look at the difference here. And this is just standard 1940s era like American highway bridge. And granted, it's different than a regular city bridge, but but I've seen like there are several bridges in my city in the downtown area that are prettier than this, like way prettier than this. And that bugs me. I feel like C tier American city downtown bridge should not be prettier than like capital of culture London. Like just look at this picture, man. Look at it. This is depressing. Like if you don't know the skyscrapers in London, you would not know that this is London. This could be Washington DC for all you know. Like I've seen parts of Washington DC that look like this. And it just looks like anywhere. Like this could be just in any city. And it's even worse because after the whole terrorist attack, they put these big blocks here, like down here. So now you got these big blocks on the bridge to keep cars from running people over. That's what diversity gets you, I guess. But it's just so uninspired, man. It's awful. Like I don't know if there was a lot of public it doesn't say that it doesn't say that there was a lot of public outcry against this, but I gotta imagine there was some public outcry against this thing. Like it's just yeah, you just look at downtown London and it's so soulless. It's just not there's nothing about it that makes me think soul and culture, and it's like you look at places in Paris and man, Paris is beautiful. Like even though Paris wasn't the original medieval city, and even though medieval Paris was quite beautiful in its own way, like the modern rebuild of Paris is still very beautiful. Like I don't know whatever happened to that. And this is a later picture of London Bridge, and as you can see, there's different buildings on it later on. Like these were all there were several fires where all the buildings on London Bridge or So where buildings on London Bridge burned down because of several fires over the years, and so they were rebuilt in a different style, in a more, I guess, less chaotic sort of style. And I don't think these buildings were that old when they were torn down, but there were buildings on London Bridge from the 1200s, I think, into the 1700s. I think they said they were on, yeah, 550 years. That's crazy to think about. Even though like London Bridge's history is funny though, because there was never supposed to be buildings on it, but they couldn't pay for the bridge, so they started renting space on the bridge to shop owners, and shop owners built these shops on there. And as a result, the bridge was pretty much like the bridge was sinking because of these shops, and then later on it was sinking because they built a big center arch to replace these arches. But very, very cool looking bridge, and I wish they would bring stuff like this back, but it's like people have no imagination and are so nihilistic anymore. Like we've got to make everything as bland and boring and depressing as possible. Why are human beings like that now? Like I don't know if it's because people feel guilty because they have it so good, or or just because there is this sort of like I don't know what it is about it. If they just think I don't know, we need to be refined and be above like art and beauty and like interesting stuff. Here's another picture of the bridge. By the way, there's a tower at one end of the bridge where they would display the severed heads of of executed prisoners, and they would put them on pikes on this end of the bridge. And they did that into the 1600s, I want to say. So another little interesting historical tidbit there. The scale's a little off here though, because like looking at this picture, you would think the heads are like half the size of a normal human being, but I'm sure it's just a stylistic choice by the artist to highlight certain aspects of this bridge, because I don't think these buildings on the bridge were this much taller than the buildings on the shore. I also don't think the church towers were this prominent, though it's quite pretty with all the church towers. And I'm not saying London has to be like every European city and look like every European city and have all the historic buildings and stuff. I'm just saying it's got to have some personality, because it just doesn't. Like people think that these modern buildings that have these weird like look to them have like they think that that's a good option, but I think it destroys people's sense of joy and well-being. I don't know, maybe people are so happy now that they don't need to make beautiful stuff to keep them happy. But and maybe I'm just the weird one out because I'm completely antisocial, so I'd like some of that. They did save the some of the things, like this alcove was on that bridge at one point. Though it looks like I'm sure homeless people sleep here though in London. So that's another positive of that. That's the old bridge being demolished. But yeah, the it was a beautiful bridge though. The like even the replacement, it was a beautiful bridge. And London's still kind of interesting looking though. Not as much, not as interesting without the sort of peak roofs buildings. And you can see this building was there. This one, and that one, and then everything else in this picture is gone, I think. But you look at this, and this is so much more quintessentially British. Like I think a lot of British culture has kind of gone by the wayside, and they're a lot like every other multinational sort of country where they just kind of want to be where they just kind of want to be the cultural like mix and match of the world, just like every other major city. But that's all I had to say on that matter. You guys be good.